Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Phenomenal Views. I am your host, Nick Smith, and as you can tell, I am wearing the Punisher shirt. Yes, this is the review I promised after I started my video game Labyrinth series. I'm here to talk about probably not just my favorite comic book film, but possibly it is either my favorite film or one of my favorite films. I'm talking about the movie by... I can't remember his name. I just watched the frickin' movie, but it is a pretty good director. Crud, what is his name? This is just horrible, but oh well. But this movie, The Punisher, which has Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, John Travolta as Howard Saint. This was a great film. Thomas Jane really captures the look and the feel of the Punisher. When you see him as Frank Castle, he looks almost exactly like Frank Castle. Just like with Andrew Garfield, looks like Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and as Ben Affleck, looks exactly like Matt Murdock. He is Daredevil. Thomas Jane is Frank Castle. He is the Punisher. Andrew Garfield is Peter Parker. He is Spider-Man. Now, one of the main reasons that this was such a great film is because it did everything right. It did the Punisher. In my opinion, this did the Punisher justice. Thomas Jane loves this character. He loved the character so much, and this is when you can tell an actor really loves a character. The reason why he was not in Punisher Warzone, because when he seen the script and everything that they were doing to the franchise that he loved so dear to his heart, he dropped out of the project because he's like, okay, if you all are going to do this to a wonderful franchise, to something that's very dear to me, I'm not going to be a part of it. He dropped out of Punisher Warzone because he didn't want to be part of the franchise because he thought they were destroying it. But The Punisher starts off with Frank Castle, actually it starts off with Howard Saint going into his club, and his son is going on his own drug bust, which is he has two twins, Bobby Saint and John Saint, and he has his wife Olivia, who is played by Laura Hitting, and she plays one cold woman in this movie. When you first see her, you don't really think anything of it, but when her son gets killed in the drug bust, basically, it's kind of a setup. It's a setup. And so, you know, he doesn't want his limo driver going with him or his bodyguard that his dad asked to protect him. He's like, no, I want to impress Dad, as he's talking to his brother. And so when everything goes bad, and it's part of the plan, things are supposed to go bad, he wasn't supposed to get killed, but, however, he does. And the very first time we see Thomas Jane as Frank Castle, he's dressed as a guy named Otto Krieg, who is like some drug dealer, and his hair is blonde, and that's actually Thomas Jane's real hair color. I know too much about this actor. That's what happens when you watch the movie over and over and over and over and over. But so he's playing a fake drug dealer, and there's a shootout. Bobby gets killed. So then he has a goodbye party, and they say he's like, you know, his friend Jimmy's like one of the best FBI agents I've ever met. And so then we get to when the Saints find out that their youngest has been killed, and when that happens, the guy who was watching him, Mickey, I think his name is, yeah, Mickey, he gets his bail, but he gets his bail paid off by the Saints, and the Saints are rich, like they are loaded. Like they beat the living crap out of him, and they're like, you know, if it's any consolation to Mr. Saint, the guy who made the deal, he's dead too. And he's like, well, I want to know who killed my son. So then he's like, the guy who was supposed to look after him must die. So he shoots the guy who was watching him play cards before he left. And he's like, Bobby insisted that I stay. I wanted to go like I was supposed to, but he didn't want me to go. He thought he could impress you. He shoots him in the head, and then he's like, my son didn't need to impress me. After this, we do get some development, finally, with Thomas Jane and his family, with his wife, with Frank, his wife Maria, which is played by an actress named Samantha, which I don't remember her last name, or actually, it's like Samantha Mothis, or Modis. She plays a very good Maria Castle. Even though I've actually never read the comics of the Punisher, I've done some research, and I truly believe that this is how she actually was before her and his son Will was murdered. And they're going on a family reunion, which his dad is one of the best people you could ever have for a dad. Frank Castle's dad is freaking Roy. Hold on a minute. Let me turn on the lights. I don't know what that helps, but oh well. His dad is Roy Schneider or Scheider. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but his dad is freaking Officer Brody from Jaws. Who else would you want for a dad? Let's see, Chuck Norris, Bruce Willis, Bruce Campbell. That's not the point. But when they go to the family reunion, his dad is like, you know, we haven't seen each other for 5 years. That's way too long. And we get a really good connection with this family. Now, a bunch of people make the argument, yeah, you don't care about these people when they're dying because we don't get to know them. Well, you do get to know these people. You don't get to know all of them, but the fact of the matter is you feel sorry for these people getting killed because it's someone's family. When someone's family is a target, and even though you don't know, you still want them to get out okay because it is someone's family, it is someone they love, and when you know the main hero, like when you are getting to know the main hero and they do something in the film to hurt the main hero, you care. It's not like in these horror films, like when you don't know, like when they bring in people who are just gonna die, yeah, you don't care about them. But when it comes to someone's family, his whole family, you care about these characters. And when his family is getting murdered, I almost shed a tear. This is a very well done scene. This is a very hard scene to watch. It's especially hard when his wife and son get ran over as they're limping. That is one of the saddest moments in this film. And so, the reason why his family is getting killed is because Olivia Saint is basically like, they're at their son's funeral, and Howard has a guy named Quentin who's like his best friend, his bodyguard, yada, his lawyer, whatever. And so he's like, you know, you have your chance. He's going to a family reunion, and the wife's like, or Howard's like, I think you should tell Olivia how he died when you come back. And she's like, no, his whole family. Take out his whole family. And instantly when she said that, my gosh, I felt cold. Because Howard Saint isn't the real villain. I mean, he is a villain. I mean, he's a sadistic person when he goes crazy. But it's really his wife who was the main evil villain because of what she wants. She wants Frank to feel the pain that she felt, just 10 times worse. And the fact of the matter is that he doesn't watch his whole family get killed, but the fact that when he's at the family reunion and the mobsters find where he is, because, you know, they're mobsters. Of course they're going to find where you live. I mean, they're at a family reunion in Puerto Rico or something. And so the fact that him and his dad are talking, and his dad's showing him his old guns, and then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot. His mom gets shot in the back. A lot of people get shot with machine guns. A lot of people just get stabbed, shot, murdered. And the fact that when Frank gets a shotgun and he starts shooting people, him and Roy Schneider team up and they take down some of the mobsters. But sadly, his dad gets shot in the back, and before his dad dies, he stabs a mobster in the back. And so, I tell you, this was a very hard scene for me to get through. For me to even though I've watched this film thousands of times, it's like when I watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and when Gwen died. If you've already watched my review or you haven't, spoiler alert, but when I watched Gwen die, I was crying. And even though I have seen the death so many times, you still want Gwen to live. You care about her character, and you care about these two specific characters. You care about his wife, and you care about his son, because he's basically wanting to make up for all the time that he lost, for he's an FBI agent, and he's been all over the world, basically, and so he's like, I'm sorry that I wasn't there, you know, I'm gonna make it up, and she's like, and his wife knows the territory of being an FBI agent. She accepts it. She's like, hey, I married you for better or worse, and I would do it again. And these two, Thomas Jane and Samantha Hackthis, I don't know, or Mathis or something. They have really good chemistry with each other. They pull it off, and they actually make it believable that these two are really husband and wife. Even though they're not, it's like, once again, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. I want to say Gwen Stacy, but they have really good chemistry with each other. Just like Thomas Jane and Samantha Mathis, or Hathis, whatever you pronounce her last name. But when you see like all that he has, and when it's all taken away from him, it sucks. And when he starts going on revenge, oh boy, he shoots a gas tank and it sets somebody on fire. And one thing I do really honestly recommend, watch this film on FX. Because that's where I learned a lot of this stuff. There was a guy who was actually set on fire when the tank exploded. He was in a flammable suit, but they only did it a couple of times because it is an extremely dangerous scene to film. So, you know, props on that. So when his whole family is killed, John Saint, the youngest son, freaking finds him after they've murdered all of his family, and he has one bullet left, or he thinks he has a bullet in the shotgun left, but when he shoots it, there's nothing. They beat the crap out of him, set the dock on fire, and they blow up the dock. And so then when he's floating in the water, he's found by this witch doctor that they introduced in the beginning, in the earlier of the film, when he's hanging out with his mom, his wife, his dad, and his son. And we do get some bonding time with his son. Frank is done with his job, and his son doesn't believe it, and so when they're moving, he's like, why are we always moving? You tell me that this is always going to be the last time. And he's like, well, I promise you, this is the last time we are moving. And so, you know, once again, Frank is the father who hasn't got to spend a lot of time with his son, but now that he is retired, he is going to do just that until it is all taken away from him. And so, and they do explain where the Punisher shirt came, why he wears it and where it came from. In the movie, I don't know where it came from in the comics, but in the movie, his son and wife bought it for him as a present, and he wears it in remembrance of them. And so when it's 5 months later after his family is killed, he goes back to the island after he's been healed up and stuff like that. He finds the shirt, and he goes to Florida. I just can't remember where it is. I just watched the film. I think it was like, oh crud. But anyway, so he goes back to Florida, and then we get some time with the villains as Howard wants to do nothing more than please his wife. And the wife is like, you know, I asked you to avenge our son, and you did. She's hot. This actress is hot. All the actresses in this movie that are important are hot. The policemen and the bad guys always get the hot women. So, when all that's going on, Frank moves to New York, or not New York, he goes back to Tampa. He goes back to Tampa, Florida. Tampa's where this movie is at, in Tampa. And so, he goes back to Tampa, and he buys an old apartment where we're introduced to the characters Joan, Dave, and Bumbo. I don't know what his real name is. Actually, it might be his real name. But we are introduced to these characters. Joan, smoking, working on her dress for her job. Dave, playing computer games. Bumbo, making food. And it shows Frank is working on this awesome car, and they're like, what do you think he does? Maybe he's an artist. Wow, our neighbor's an artist. What do you think he's doing? Ask him. And they're like, huh, yeah, like we're going to ask him. And one thing, Thomas Jane is intimidating. He plays this character so well. He goes from happy retired FBI agent dad to leave me alone, I will kill you, pissed off man. Yeah. He's like a combination between Chuck Norris and frickin' Ken Titus, just without the making your lives miserable. But as we go through on out the movie, he kidnaps Mickey and he tortures him psychologically and kind of mentally, and also kind of physically, but more mental than physical. He chains him up and he's like, I want to know everything that you know about the Saints. I ain't saying anything. You don't tell me, I'm going to kill you now. So what does he do? He chains him up, grabs a torch, and he's like, I'm going to burn your back with this, basically. And he goes into details about how it's not going to hurt at first because it's too hot. And then he starts burning a steak and poking his back with a popsicle. And he's like all freaking out. And the guys are in the apartment are like, he's killing somebody, exactly, and we're next. So then Mickey agrees to help Frank. And he basically tells him everything that happens. Where Howard Saint's money comes from, what the wife does, what his son does, and what Quentin does. And he goes around taking pictures of every single one of them and figuring out ways how to get back at them and start his revenge plan. So he finds out that the wife goes to the movies every Thursday night. So what does he do? He breaks in her car, drives it to another place. He takes a fire extinguisher or a fire hydrant and he puts it, and he leaves the car there for a while until she gets a parking ticket. And he does this frequently to start messing with their heads. And with Quentin, he finds out that Quentin is gay, so he takes pictures, puts a voice box on the phone in Olivia's car and makes threats and saying, like, here, come to this place where I'll meet you and give you money. And he never meets him because he's setting up some other things. One of the first ways Howard knows that Frank is alive is he's playing golf and his tombstone is in the hole. He's like, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I think I might. So then things start getting... When Frank goes out as a Punisher for the very first time, he breaks into Howard Saint's bank building, or the money building, where they clean the money and send it back clean and everything. And so he breaks in, and what he does is he walks in there and he's like, put the money in this briefcase, now throw money out the window. And they're like, do you know whose money this is? Whose building this is? Yeah, it's Howard Saint's. He's gonna mess your life up. He's already messed my life up. Yeah, he doesn't care. He just wants to kill Howard Saint, but he wants to take away from him everything that he had, just like Howard Saint took everything from Frank Castle. So, let me see, where was I? I hate when I lose myself, but this film, like I said again, I freaking loved. And when money starts going wrong, when things about money start going bad, they talk to the brothers who they bank for, and they're like, you lost our money. We want our money back. And how they found out who Frank Castle was in the first place was they found out that his friend Jimmy has been going to the casinos and losing money constantly. So when they find out that he works at a certain place in the department of the police department, that he could easily take money and bet on it, they decide, okay, tell us who he is, we'll pay off your debts, basically. So he tells them who Frank Castle really is, and then that's why the whole entire thing happened. Then when he comes back into Tampa, everybody's like, hey, I thought you were dead, and they can tell he's changed tremendously. He hardly ever smiles in this film. Ever. Of course, though, who would smile after losing your whole entire family? When he goes to this new apartment, all he does is drink, work on his car, and goes out. That's it. And one thing that I also loved about this film was the weapons were real. These were real guns and real knives, and they actually did testing with them. He learned how to use a butterfly knife. He learned how to use a pistol, how to use a shotgun, how to use a machine gun with a grenade launcher on it, how to use a double-barreled short-hand shotgun. Knives. He learned how to fight. He had to learn a bunch of stuff for this film. And I'm about out of time on part 1, but part 2 will be starting, so just... yeah. But that's one of the things I love about this film, is they really stepped up to the plate, and they really did everything right in this film. And so we get to where we show another scene with all the people in the apartment, like Joan, Dave, and Bumbo, and Frank, as they're in a diner, and you know, they're all eating breakfast, and all of a sudden this guy comes in, and it's the musician who played the song in the trailer. I forget his name. He plays another guy. Like, he sings the song Time Will Pass Away, or All Things Will Pass Away, the song that was in the trailer of the film. And so when he's eating breakfast, he's like, "You like that song? I wrote that for you. I'm going to be singing that at your funeral."